Hey everyone, this is Richard here talking about a NAS that I built and potentially you could build. If you're a DIYer or someone who's delved into a computer and loaded Windows, you're pretty much all sort of operating system, this is really geared for you. If you're a person that sort of has never touched a PC, never opened even a PC, then it's probably best that you get a sort of pre-built NAS. But saying that, give it a go if you want. It's entirely up to you. If you've got a spare PC around, then it's all the cheaper. So the more stuff that you have, then the cheaper obviously it is to build this particular NAS. I had pretty much all the parts, so really it cost me the case and the power supply and a couple of extra parts, which was very minimal, sort of under 400 bucks pretty much it cost me New Zealand, which is a steal considering I've got 8 sort of drives available to actually put into it. So here we go. So let's get started. This is the case that I particularly chose. There's a lot of varied reasons for it, but I'll just go into some of the things. One, it's a very sturdy case, so it doesn't bend, it doesn't thing. It's quite nice to look at. It's 8 bays for a start, and you can put a Micro Atx motherboard into it, which is really ideal. And there's a lot of room for expansion, which is a rarity on some of these cases. So let's get to it. So this is, as you can see, the 8-bay hot swap, USB 3, which is awesome. Comes with all the cables, the connections that you would ever need. As you can see, there's quite a nice airflow, so this goes, 2 fans go straight out into the hard drives themselves and out the front, which is awesome. It has all the SATA cables, the USB 3 power connections, all the LEDs for the front. With this, you can actually, your motherboard goes into here. You've got 4 expansion slots for Aliexpress or PCI cards. Remember, they're an LC connection, so they're half height. As you can see here, you need a power supply for this, which is fairly simple. I will put a link in below just letting you know what one I purchased, but you're obviously optional on what type of power supply you want to get. As you can see, you can put a 2.5-inch hard drive and an extra hard drive in here if you want to. As you can see, the airflow is quite nice in there, so you can, and I'll put all the cables and connections in there, but the flow is quite nice. Like what I said before, as you can see, it's quite sturdy, it's quite well built, comes in nice packaging, and it's just an overall good case. What I do like about this too is each hard drive actually lets you know when it's active. So there's one light telling it's on and the other one activity on the hard drive. So each hard drive is independent on the lights at the front, so you know which one's actually active or got problems. So this is where I got it from, Aliexpress. I'll share a link on below, but do shop around because you can get the shipping obviously a lot cheaper. So this was about $165, about $300 to send it, and about, I think it was about extra $50 for the power supply, so around, you know, $350, $400. I pretty much got the case and power supply. I know that sounds a lot for a case, but considering you get 8 bays, it's actually a pretty good deal. So the next thing is obviously getting into how I built this machine and how and some of the thought processes in it. First off is the technical specs that I currently have in my machine. So currently on the 8 bays that I have, 5 of the bays are for storage and 2 are hot swap. The connections, like I said to before, are USB 3 power and reset. The motherboard is an i5 6th gen, 16 gigs of RAM, M2 card here. I have a hardware RAID card, which is completely optional. The network card and a SSD card. Obviously the power supply is additional to the case, and a special RAID controller memory card. Additional to that, for Aliexpress, this is a temperature controlled fan unit. I've got 2 of these because of the size of the fans, and that controls the variable speeds on the fan at the back, so it only runs at a percentage of what it does unless it needs additional heat to be cooled down. And this is done through pressing this button. You can customize the requirements. As you can see, in my particular scenario, I've got SAS controllers, which are 4 ports in each one, and as you can see, the ribbon goes to that module. And that's pretty much all the technical specs. Now I'll tell you the reasonings behind them in my next part now. Now a lot of you wanted to know on how I set my machine up. So basically I have 7 drives. 5 of the drives are used for storage and 2 of them are hot swap. If you use a RAID calculator, please use a RAID calculator, and they'll give you an indication of how much space you actually will achieve. Because the higher the RAID, the less data that you have, and definitely think about a hot swap. I know it's a drive that doesn't get used, but it usually saves you bacon later on. So currently I've got a hardware RAID card, like I said. Sorry, I'm getting to that. So it has 2 SAS ports, or you can have 2 SATA depending on the RAID card. Mine can support both, but the cables are different for SATA and SAS, so I've got both. So because I'm running SAS drives, I'm running SAS controllers, and basically each port has 4 connections, so I'm able to run all the 8 ports completely run off the hardware RAID card. Benefits of RAID card: pretty much rebuilds. You can hot swap the drives. If there's a drive failure, it will tell you what drives failed. You can take the drive out, put the drive in, it automatically rebuilds. Pretty much it makes it automated to what the normal server would be. So if you've ever worked on a server, if you've got a drive fail, it lets you know which drive it's failed. Take the hard drive out, put the new one in, it automatically rebuilds. That gives that ability in a desktop environment and a low cost environment if you've got the RAID card yourself. And you can pick them up on Aliexpress for pretty damn cheap, 40, 50 bucks, if that's the way you want to go. But I mean, most motherboards have sort of 6 ports, or sort of some of them have 8 ports, so potentially you may have a computer that's already got all the ports that you need and you don't have to spend anything. There is ability to run M2 cards and have additional SATA ports through that too, so, and that's quite a cheap $30–40 sort of scenario if you don't have enough ports and you want to run the full 8 ports. So you've got a lot of customization. Just remember, don't go overboard. You pretty much just have to get a basic machine. It can be an i3 with 4 gigs of RAM. It just really depends on what you want to do with it. If you want to run a NAS, you don't actually need that much, because just remember, your high-end NAS is quad core with 4 gigs of RAM. So anything you put in there is probably 10 times faster than what they've got in their ones. So yeah, and like I say, if you do want to upgrade or whatever, or you want to use it for another task, all you have to do is just upgrade the hardware when it suits.